Now, we both know that shopping for a rug can be challenging. You've either got insanely expensive handcrafted rugs or the mass-produced alternatives that won't hold up. But that's where Revival Rugs comes in. Revival's founders didn't want to spend thousands on a new rug, but they didn't want to settle for less either. Revival is a global company with teams in the U.S. as well as weaving regions in India, Turkey, and Morocco. Revival works with artisans to preserve rug-making traditions and pass on this value to you. Eliminating middlemen allows them to remove steep markups, giving you amazing value at incredible prices. And Revival's popular washable rugs have the look and feel of a real rug, so you don't have to sacrifice style for convenience. And my favorite, which I ordered, is the sweatshirt rug, and I also love the stripe rug. So spruce up your space with Revival Rugs. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20%. Vacation season is nearly upon us. I know I'm going away soon, and I'm going to be treating myself to the luxe upgrades that I deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials and at fair prices. Like lightweight European linen styles from $30, washable silk tops and comfy lounge sets, with premium luggage options and stylish tote bags to carry it all. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Because by partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. And I love that. My favorite right now, get the organic gauze shirt. My favorite is the base side stripe. Get it in that one. You're going to love it. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades that you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/KateCasey for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/KateCasey to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. Hope that you're having a great midweek. My niece came to visit me this weekend and she said, you know what I think people want? They want to see a day in the life on your Instagram and your TikTok. So I went ahead and made a video. And I said to her, I don't think people are going to care. And she said, surprisingly, people really care about what other people during their day. So go ahead and check out my Instagram and my TikTok. I made a video and you can kind of see a window into the craziness of my house and the kind of stuff that I have to deal with on a Monday in particular, which is the craziest day of the week. Also, I was thinking about how a lot of you are headed out soon for spring break with your kids. And in the haste of putting together all of the luggage and making the plans for the animals, etc., for your trips, sometimes the last thing that you take care of is getting a book for the beach or wherever you may be, or downloading things for the plane. So I want you to go to katecasey.substack.com because you're going to get all my archive lists of things to watch. And each week you can go through and just scroll through the selections. Something's going to come up for you. May it be a true crime series, a sports series, something that you can download for the plane or where you're sitting, whatever resort you may be staying. But also you can get the link to my book club list, all the books that I have done. And for example, I just finished The Kennedy Heirs by J. Randy Taraborelli. He's actually going to come back and talk about that book. I've got 3 books in the queue for my break. I'm going to be reading one about a group of people from Philadelphia that were sending arms to Ireland during the Troubles. You guessed it right. I think my dad was a part of that. I'm reading a book about a plane crash. And then the last one is Graydon Carter's biography. So I've got those lined up. So again, go to katecasey.substack.com so you can look for things to find for your trips and also great reads for your trips. Then lastly, go into my Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey, and feel free to post something like, I'm off on a trip. What do you guys recommend? Because the people that are in that Facebook group are so astute. They're so interesting. They're so funny. And we are talking about podcasts, movies, TV shows, etc. And everybody always has great recommendations. So make sure that you do that. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to this show so that you get new episodes in your queue and share it with the people in your life. Did you know that Kate Casey is a big part of my day? Every day I check out her new episode. She tells me what to watch and she brings me these great interviews. So many people have reached out to me about the Saturday series with their own stories, and I will be bringing some of those to you. I'm so grateful. I had a friend reach out to me and say, I just went on a walk with my friend, and she shared something about her personal life, and I thought she'd make for a great episode. Would you be open to it? I said, well, you need to ask her. So I think this one story that came from just a walk with a friend may turn into an episode too. So make sure that you're checking back for Saturdays too. And if you have somebody that you want to nominate, maybe you grew up with somebody, you're like, Kate, you are not going to believe this wackadoo family and what happened after graduation. Send it my way because I love a good story. By the way, I will be interviewing for my Friday's episode the co-directors and the executive producer of a Netflix doc series called Bad Influencer, which is about YouTube influencers. If you have kids at home that are probably, in that, like, I'm going to say age 12 to 20-year-old range, this is going to be one of those stories that they are very aware of and hyper obsessed with. And it's the story of Piper Raquel. So buckle up. That's going to probably be number one on Netflix next week, I am assuming, because the story is mesmerizing and a conversation starter, to say the least. And also, my friend Eliza has a new documentary that's coming out called Spy High. And I'm going to be interviewing the team behind that too. That's going to be on Amazon Prime next week. Lots of good stuff is coming down the pipeline. And then make sure you remember to check out HBO on April 14th. That's the Real Housewives episode for Hollywood Demons. And I'm in that episode too. Okay. I came across the Pamela Anderson show. Now, you may remember that when Chris DeRosa and I were talking about the Meghan Markle show, I mentioned that she was getting some heat because it looked in similarity to the Pamela Anderson show. And he said, well, that wouldn't be that unusual because a team would say, this show was shot beautifully, let's do something similar. And networks kind of like to do that too. So I found myself a few days ago scrolling through Hulu and I came across Pamela Anderson's Garden of Eden. This is a great show, you guys. I am so glad I found it. And for those of you who love like a great interior design show, this is right up your alley. But if you listen, I'm not like a do-it-yourself person, but I do find myself fascinated by shows that go into a different pocket of the world and just to see their landscapes. But also, this is a show at the helm is someone who I find so fascinating as well. So Pamela Anderson owns this property in Ladysmith, Vancouver Island, Canada. She bought it from her grandparents. She's been renovating it. It was seen in the HGTV Canada series Pamela's Garden of Eden Season 1. And now the one I want you to watch is Season 2. So I get now why Meghan Markle's team said, you got to look at this. So I was looking for something to watch one night, get sucked into this immediately. The show is a great find. So Arcady is the family's plot. So Pamela, again, has been renovating this property, which needed significant work. Her parents lived in a cabin on the property when they were first married. So she grew up on the property. So she purchased the property from her paternal grandmother about 30 years ago. And her plan was to return it to the original vision, like to create a masterpiece. So she moved to Vancouver Island at the start of the pandemic, seeking a new beginning and a way to remember who she was. Because if you remember, that was around the time that they were filming her documentary. And I think, her career was kind of in a lull. She says that the first season of that show was a bit of a mess. She said it was not my favorite time of life. I was in survival mode while writing my memoir and then doing the documentary. And I was an open wound when it was being shot, and I just wasn't happy with it. So she thinks that the second season is really more about redemption, authenticity, truth, and self-acceptance. I'm taking my power back instead of giving it up. I took control of the show and figured out a way to keep my vision and turn it into a positive experience, and I kept it real. So if you have not watched that documentary, I highly recommend it. It's called Pamela, A Love Story. It came out in 2023 on Netflix. And it was about exploring Pamela's rise to fame, her rocky romances, and her infamous sex tape scandal, but told through her own words, her personal videos, and her diaries. She's one of those people that has kept every single video, picture, letter, etc. So the documentary delves into her life story, including her childhood, that rise to fame through Playboy and Baywatch, her marriage to Tommy Lee, and then the theft and the distribution of her intimate tape. And I have to say, you look at it completely different through the lens of 2023. It was directed by Ryan White, who you know. I loved his The Keepers, which is on Netflix. It's one of my favorite documentary series of all time. So he directed it, and then Pamela's eldest son, Brandon Thomas Lee, co-produced the film. And then she experienced a career resurgence following the release, including the film The Last Showgirl, in which she received several award nominations. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't love Pamela Anderson. She's just one of those people where you think to yourself, if you don't love Pamela Anderson, there's something wrong with you. And I love the way that her sons have been part of this career resurgence. So she's reflected on her mindset again during that season 1. And she said, before I was thinking it was a little HGTV Canada show and it was just about me doing sustainable design, I was wrong. Unfortunately, once again, I felt slightly exploited. I was allowing others to make decisions. I had no idea they'd use old photos or ex-husbands or any of my celebrity life. So she's thinking it's going to be a show about the renovation of her property. And the people that were producing it and directing it were showing all these like flashbacks. So when you see the second season, you realize that she is authentically has a really great creative eye. She's so easy to listen to. She's like a very calming person. And just the majestic landscape, the property in which she lives, and how they have designed it is sort of mesmerizing. So, of course, her sons are also taking part in this. Brandon's 28 and Dylan's 25. And they seem to have such a great relationship, which kind of makes it special too. She says, we've kind of gotten into our groove. The boys are much more a part of the family property creation now, which was my dream. I wanted to involve them without consuming them. We also renovated their new house in LA, which we had to wait for the never-ending permanent restriction process that comes with living on the water. So that's another element. You get to see these beautiful plots on the property renovated, but then you also get to see what they do in LA. And Brandon's now fiance is also a designer, so she takes part too. So it's just a very family-centric show. And also her parents are on the property too. So you get to see everybody. And I'm sure she uses an interior designer to work with her too. It is so beautiful. Ladysmith has a population of around 9,000, panoramic views across an oyster bay to the southern Gulf Island. Her garden features a variety of fruits and vegetable plants that she tends to herself. She has a station in her yard where she has jars and cans to produce. Her yard also includes a picnic area nestled into the middle of the trees where she can enjoy quality time with her sons. I was watching that thinking people would want to go visit this place, Ladysmith. Now listen, it's in a part of the world that probably gets cold, very, very cold, but I'm assuming during the summer months, it's just one of the most beautiful places you could ever be. So I want you to watch it. It's season 2. That's a better reflection of who she is, she says. Season 2 of Pamela Anderson's Garden of Eden on Hulu. I believe it's also on Apple TV Plus too. So if you don't have Hulu, but you have Apple TV Plus. So absolutely check that out. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Now, you know I've said that my goal this year is to stay more hydrated. You can gift yourself the everyday indulgence of extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV, powered by Live Hydroscience. They've got true-to-fruit flavors that keep you hydrated. And you can find all your favorite hydration multiplier flavors on their website. I have to say my favorite flavor is the sugar-free raspberry lemonade because it's a bright, zero sugar flavor combining notes of ripe, freshly picked raspberries and citrusy, zesty lemon. And it really gets me going on my day. I think you're going to love it too. I like feeling like I'm hydrated all day long. And if you're somebody who's outdoors or plays sports, this is an absolute must-have. You can break the mold and own your own ritual. Just 1 stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. It's 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. And also 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Treat yourself to extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code KateCasey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code KateCasey at liquidiv.com. There are so many things in life we just never get around to. Taking up that hobby, cleaning out the garage, the little things that don't really make huge differences in our lives. Yet, there's one thing that most of us have probably been neglecting that can have a huge impact on our family's future. It's life insurance. And with Select Quote, getting covered with the right policy for you is easier and more affordable than you may think. Select Quote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. If you have high blood pressure, no problem. If you have diabetes, that's fine too. And even if you have heart disease, Select Quote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Select Quote, they shop and you save. So get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/realitylife. Go to selectquote.com/realitylife today and get started. That's selectquote.com/realitylife. Real Housewives of Beverly Hills had their reunion, the first part. And Dorit opens up. By the way, Dorit is so small. I'm a little bit concerned. I know how much the camera adds, and she just seems so frail. And then you put into perspective how difficult it must be for the housewives to film these kind of shows, especially the reunion. I would assume up until the point of reunion, there is so much stress because you have to litigate every fight you've had. But the Beverly Hills women all contain themselves and they never fully go there. And I have to give, the flowers, if you will, to other seasons or franchises of the show who will really go there. I think in Salt Lake City, they go there, or Atlanta, they go there. But what does it do to you when you contain yourself? You disallow yourself to be authentically yourself and to voice. That would eat you up. And then you have the added pressure of how things are going to play out on social media. And I really wish that more housewives would talk about that part of it. Anyway, that's what I was thinking as I watched the first package, which was Dorit's story. Says she has no regrets about withholding the estrangement of she and PK from her children, and that she doesn't want to get back with PK under current circumstances, that she's still in love with him but feels less and less of a chance that they'll ever get back to where they were. And I wonder what you guys thought about that. If you have small kids, is it better to shield them even though you're on a reality show? Is it possible to do so? And does it depend more on their ages? So then Andy says, well, I have a statement for PK that I thought was very well done. He says, I was invited to be part of the reunion, but declined because I don't believe in engaging with Dorit in this forum would be constructive. Dorit has made several mischaracterizations about me, but the one I must address is the claim that I'm a bad father. That statement is both heartbreaking and false. It is deeply hurtful to me and more importantly to our children who, despite Dorit's assertion, will inevitably see and hear all of this at a time not of our choosing. Those closest to us know the truth. Many have wanted to speak, but I have asked them not to because the truth could never need a champion. I refused to stoke a fire, and I did not ignite. The Dorit I married would never have allowed this, much less caused it. That woman embodied kindness, integrity, and grace, and I can only hope this version of Dorit finds her way back to the person she once was. So I wonder what you thought about that too. I thought that that was a class act to say that because I would think that it's one of those things I always say, think of life in 555s. How is this going to affect you 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 years from now? And while you might be frustrated that your narrative is completely lost because of the show, because it's the narrative of the wife, right? You don't want your kids to go and look back at fighting on a reunion stage. You may want your kids later to say, I wish you would have done that off camera. So I thought that was interesting because there are other franchises like New Jersey, maybe New York, they would have done just that. So I think that was his attempt at kind of setting some boundaries and asserting that it was very hurtful to say I'm a bad father. I thought to myself when she said that, I don't know how you walk back from that. That would be something that, well, after the show ends, that would be a point of contention when you're talking about anything from where the kids are going to go to school or how to handle an emotional situation. I just don't know how you could let go of that. And that is another problem, I think, with being on a reality show is while you're angry and you may feel frustrated, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube because this lives in syndication. So these are the things that I was thinking of, like the long-term ramifications of when you go through a divorce and you've been on a reality show. I'm glad she did say that she does think he's a good father because I would imagine she would feel badly about that for a time. She said she welcomed the idea of him coming onto the show and that she'd recognize that he enjoys the attention he receives from the show. That's kind of like backhanded, but okay. She's chosen not to have a relationship with him outside of co-parenting and then said something about like, Andy asked, will he see the kids? And she said, well, maybe on Saturday. I felt it's not our business what their custody arrangement is, but I think it goes back to like, you're kind of saying he's a terrible father. And I suppose that I feel that way because she also seems pretty aggressive in the way she kept calling him an alcoholic. And I feel like that's something else that the kids in the long term might be upset about because, as I've said before, I've had friends who've had a spouse who have been dealing with sobriety issues. And I've learned that it's really somebody else's story to tell. That's another one where like, how can you take that back? Putting that out there until he tells the world what it is. I don't know if it's fair to accuse somebody of being an alcoholic. So then they go into her friendship with Bose. And I think what I get the sense of is that, and to Andy's credit, he asked, you've worked in business, you must have studied the show. And thank God she said, yes, I did, because it would be insane to join a show and not do your research. And of course, she's worked in business. It would make no sense to join. Would you start to work for a company where you didn't look up all the information you could about the company before you signed the contract? So I love that she said that, but she said, on the heels of advice that Garcelle gave me, I wanted to approach each relationship in a different way and see how I connected. But I get the sense that they're all, as I mentioned, containing their own feelings. And there's so much stuff that happens off camera that I wish that they would crack themselves open a little bit more and let us in on that. Because I'm assuming that these group texts that they do are insane. And there must be some sort of backstory about that. Then these are the highlights, I thought. And then Erica, she said that she wished that Garcelle was more interesting. Garcelle opened about being a mom, an actress, a producer, and her co-stars feel like she could provide a bit more details about her personal life. I think that her reality is probably just pretty normal. I think that a lot of her time is spent in the background trying to greenlight projects. And like, that's not always the most interesting, the film. She's making calls. She's in the office. Maybe she goes to lunch, but like people really are doing a lot of these meetings via Zoom and it's not that salacious. And also she doesn't want to bring cameras in because she really wants to greenlight the project. Now, granted, some of them might go, this is great to have your name attached. But I also think Garcelle is wise enough to know that, at least at that time, I'm going to use this opportunity for all that I can, but it's not something that I'm going to be on for the rest of my life. So I thought that was crazy that Erica said, I just don't think you're that interesting. You don't show us your dating life. It's like, but at the same time, all we saw of Erica this season was redecorating her house. And now some would argue it's because she has all these legal issues she can't comment on, which is totally fair. But then again, you can't be ripping someone apart where we don't really see that much of your life. I would assume that she's dating. Why don't we see who Erica's dating as well? So you can kind of see that they're kind of laying the groundwork for Garcelle to get up and leave and ultimately decide not to go back to the show, because I feel like whenever there's a pointed question, they all just sort of raise their eyebrows and like their shoulders sort of shoot up. But they're all not willing to really go there on anything. Like they don't go there with Dorit and her finances and how much she spends on glam squads and Kyle with her relationship with Morgan. Like they'll kind of like dip their toe in it, but they won't go there like they will in other franchises. And I think that's based on them all sort of kind of circling around one another all the time, trying to figure out who has the most power. which is a very specific thing for the city in which they live in the entertainment industry. Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, the greater LA area is the kind of place where, since most people work in the industry and then it sort of trickles out into community life and into other places, is that you always kind of get the sense that someone is looking past your shoulder to see if somebody else more powerful just walked into their room. And you're also trying to figure out, most people there are trying to figure out, who do I need to know to get myself up the ladder farther? And I think you see that in the way that they communicate. They are careful about everything they say. You get the sense, if I go after that person, I don't know where all the details of my life might end up. In other words, they're holding me hostage because they have information on me. And then you also add to that component, they're all trying to figure out, because of the industry and the city in which they live, who has the most power behind the scenes on the cast. And it is very clear to me that they all think Kyle has the most power. And sure, people have long said Kyle has some sort of producing privilege. They all kind of seem to me are cognizant of that. And they're almost at some points trying to buddy up to her to feel like they're safe from this imaginary power, or they're trying to figure out just how much power she has. I'm off to Hawaii soon, and I've been looking for great dresses, suits, bags, and sandals for my trip. You know who else needs stuff? My almost 16-year-old daughter. Now, where can I find all of those things in one place? Revolve. And I know that you love Revolve too. Over 1,200 brands and 100,000 styles from across high-end, emerging, and exclusive labels in fashion, beauty, and home goods, consistently offering the latest and most sought-after trends in fashion from top brands like Lovers and Friends, Love Shack Fancy, Misa, and Zimmermann. I just ordered a pink Japanese dress, a gold clutch, gold sandals, and a monogram necklace, and I might even wear it to my niece's graduation too. Authentic, high-quality products, new arrivals daily, inclusive sizing. From last-minute getaways to party dressing and seasonal upgrades, Revolve has you covered with fast 2-day shipping and easy returns, all on them. And for a limited time, you can shop a curated selection of my favorite styles at revolve.com/KateCasey and receive 15% off your first order with code KateCasey. That's revolve.com/KateCasey to shop my top picks and get 15% off your first order with code KateCasey. The offer is only valid for a limited time, so do not miss out.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quests to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
So Andy quizzes Kyle about how, or whether fame has changed Dorit. And she says, I think this season I saw a Dorit that I didn't know. And then added, Dorit was angry and she seemed a lot more aggressive than usual. And then that was it. If it was another franchise, Heather Gay, for example, would go, I thought this is weird and let me list all the ways. And so I think that we as viewers just sort of were like, just go there, just go there. Why has she changed? How has she changed because of fame? How has her lens changed? Does she treat you with disrespect? Is she late to film? Does she surround herself with a circle of people that make it impossible to get access to her? Does she think that she's not, that she should get a higher pay rate? Does she think that she deserves to be in TV shows now? There's no context for it, which is just so frustrating. Then Andy brought up Dorit calling PK the monster and talking about PK's temper. And Kyle said in her confessional that she never saw that side of PK. And then Dorit says, you're supposed to know me way better than you know him because you only have a relationship where you have memes and jokes, right? Then I got frustrated because I feel like Kyle never explains, she never provides context on her relationship or friendship with PK, which I would assume, again, based on the fact that Mauricio and PK are very close friends, you're going to see this guy over at your house all the time, and you're going to have a deeper window into what else is happening in his life and in his marriage that she might not necessarily say. And then also the fact that they both don't drink. They probably have that in common. She doesn't go there. She doesn't explain it. She sort of sits back. But I also wonder if that's because that's the way she's always coped with stress growing up. This is why I like to meet the parents and the siblings and the friends of the housewives to get a better idea of how someone copes with stress, operates in social situations, how they defend themselves, when they speak up for themselves. They're all giving you sort of context clues about who they are. And so when Kyle gets in a stressful situation, she sort of tightens up and her shoulders rise and she sort of sits back in the chair. And I, of course, wonder, if this is what she's always been like? And in her marriage, did she feel like she just kept her feelings to herself? And that's part of her inability to really express what's going on with Morgan, is that she perhaps worries too much all the time about what everyone thinks about everything in her life. And that may have well predated even her marriage to Mauricio. So then they bring up the robbery. Now, in October of 2021, the Kemsley home was robbed, and Dorit was robbed at gunpoint in her home while the two kids were in the house. At the time, PK was in London for business. So the impact of that robbery became a talking point in seasons 12 and 13. And during the season 13 reunion, Garcelle implied that the robbery was a complete setup, pointing to the placement of Dorit's jewelry and that the robbers allowed her to keep her cell phone. And then during season 14, Garcelle added that she didn't think Dorit had anything to do with the robbery. And those were the very specific words. I don't think that she had anything to do with the robbery, but at the season 14 reunion, Garcelle said that she thought that the whole home invasion and robbery was a strategic plot. And she admitted that she had no evidence to support the theory. It was just what she thought. And then Dorit slammed her for carelessly throwing out the idea without any regard how it would impact her family. And then Garcelle says, well, then I'm wrong. I'm sorry if it hurts you, and this is how I feel. And then Bose said that words are dangerous, careless, and really, really terrible to say, especially with no evidence to back it up. That, I think, was the impasse for Garcelle. I think at that point, she's like, I don't even want to be here. And there's that moment in the beginning of the reunion where she says, well, maybe by the end of this, like, we'll all take a cast picture because it didn't happen last season. Well, now we know. She gets up and leaves at some point, doesn't come back. There is no cast picture. And after she went on Watch What Happens Live, Andy Cohen said on his radio show that Garcelle had reached out to him and said, I really want to talk to you. And they made time about an hour before she went on Watch What Happens Live. So now you go back in time and you're thinking about how that was filmed and their body language. But he made it seem like she had come to the realization that it was not wise for her to come back to the show. So I have to say, watching that, and I wonder if you guys agree with me too, that seems to be the moment where she's like, it's not worth it for me to be on the show anymore. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about, this Denise Richards show, which is a little sleeper hit, and I'm going to tell you why. Everyone on that show is authentically and unapologetically themselves. Now, it seems like a simple thing to say, but as I've just gone through with Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, most people that are on a reality show, and certainly those in certain franchises of shows that have been on shows for quite some time, they begin to contain themselves or pivot on their own life narrative. And Denise Richards and the people in her life that are on the show just are authentically who they are. And I love it for that reason. So the backstory on Denise and Charlie Sheen is that after meeting in 2000 and marrying in 2002, they had their daughter Sam in 2004. They announced their second pregnancy later that year, but a few months before the birth, Denise files for divorce. They continued to go through ups and downs in the years that followed. And then they had an impasse for their finances and this custody agreement. They have since reflected on the relationship and how it impacted their daughters. And in this last episode, she said, I feel like I effed up with their dad. I don't want them to look back at their childhood and remember us fighting. And she notes that she said to Charlie at one point, listen, we just have to fake it for the kids because I just want them to feel loved and supported. So let's just do that. And then you go back in time and you think about all the times that Denise was so kind to him despite what a crazy lifestyle he had created. You have to go back and remember like Tiger Blood, and he had those women that traveled with him and his house of horrors. And meanwhile, she's raising 2 children with him, albeit they lived in separate homes, but like what a shit show every day in the news. But she always extends herself for the kids. And even in the scene at the last episode, they meet up at a restaurant and you see that there's real love there. Now, does she seem like a little loopy? Yes. Does he seem a little out of it? I mean, always, but he seems to almost be excited about being on TV. He says to her, oh, I never watched Real Housewives of Beverly Hills before like 3 days ago. And there was a fight between you and Lisa, but I didn't have any context. I didn't know what it was about. And Denise notes that they wanted him to be on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and he didn't want to do so, but he seems to love the cameras. And she doesn't seem to be that bothered by him. And then I'm wondering, well, she came to LA when she was quite young. I'm going to say like 16 or something. And she's from this Midwest family that her parents stayed married for a very long time. And the crazy things that Denise Richards must have seen since she was a young girl. Do you get to a point where you just sort of roll with things? She seems like she's so kind to everybody. And I judge people a lot on how they treat a wait staff. Having been a waiter and a bartender, I feel like if you've done that, you know what I mean. She goes out of her way to be kind to the wait staff. It's a small thing, but it says a lot. Everybody that comes onto the show, she's so sweet to. The fact that she's letting Aaron's parents like live in her home with his brother, I believe, she puts herself out there all the time. But then I'm like, is that a product of the way she grew up in the Midwest? Or do you just get to a point if you live in Hollywood and you see such crazy stuff, and especially being married to Charlie Sheen? Remember he married Brooke Mueller and they had the twins, and then that was a whole mess, and Denise took them in for a little bit. That is wild. And you kind of see a window into this on the show, having the opportunity to watch Lola, who is her daughter, who, by the way, is very into God, which is so perfect and sweet because she's got these 2 parents that have this insane backstory. And in a world where, as I said, LA can be very transactional, and she's just finding her own true and authentic self. And they love her for it. And just how absolutely hilarious it is. Like if you look at this couple and I mean, the stuff they've seen and done, and this sweet girl that sort of protected herself in this sweet little life. And she is the nicest girl. The restaurant that they go to, she used to work there. And the waiter brings, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, this food looks lovely. And you see, she's her mother's daughter in that way. But they all kind of like get along. Anyway, it's a trip to watch. If you haven't watched it, take a look at it. So those are my picks for this week for reality shows. So watch Pamela Anderson's Garden of Eden Season 2 on Hulu. Please watch it. Tell me what you think, especially if you are someone who loves interior design shows or travel shows. You know who needs to watch this? Ben Mandelker from Watch What Crappens. I kind of think this is up his alley. Then the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. Tell me what you think about Dorit not letting the kids know that she and PK are probably splitting up and certainly not living together, but like keeping a lot of those details private. Does it matter if the kids are really young? Is it important to do so? Maybe if you've been through a breakup. I'm interested to hear what you think. And then Denise Richards and Wild Things, that show on Bravo, is just a trip to watch. Watch the last episode and tell me what you think about Charlie Sheen. And make sure you check back tomorrow for that interview about the Bad Influence Netflix doc-series. And then I've got a great Saturday series episode too. So just make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and keep listening and share it with the people in your life. Facebook group is Reality Life with KKC. Bonus episodes. I just posted one. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/KKC. What to Watch list is at kkc.substack.com, and follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KKCCA, TikTok, it's KKC, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KKC.
Hey everybody, we have some exciting news that we want to share. If you want to go on an adventure with Generation Y, we'd love for you to join us. January 26th through the 30th, 2026, we'll be sailing from Miami to the Bahamas on Wondery's first ever true crime cruise aboard the Norwegian Joy. Aaron and I will be there to chat, hang out, dive into all things true crime, and we're thrilled to be joined by some familiar voices in the true crime podcasting world. Surti and Hannah from Red Handed, Sashi and Sarah from Scamfluencers, and Carl Miller from Kill List. Super excited to hang out with them too. We got some cool activities, interactive mysteries we can solve, testing our forensic skills with a blood spatter expert, and so much more. So for some sun, fun, and just the right amount of mystery solving, come join us.
Ready to jump on this seriously epic adventure? Book your cabin right now at exhibitccruise.com.